Yes, good morning, everyone. Thanks for having me. So yes, as introduced, I'm Ryan Taylor from a company called WEKA. Our presentation today, an introduction to the company, is going to be slightly different because I think what we're seeing, and very interesting presentation, a lot of that hinges on data and the amount of data that you need to get more predictive modeling, to get make more sense out of that data, and obviously more accurate predictions and the more modeling and so on. So what we're doing at WEKA, I'll just give you some insight into the company, who we are, the benefits, obviously, that we are bringing a lot of customers in FSI and many other vertical markets for that matter, and then how we go to market and how all of that integrates together. So just some background into the company, who we are, where we've come from. We were only founded in 2014, so some may say it's relatively new, but if you look at our website, I do urge you to go onto that after that. So weka.io, you will find that we are fast becoming the standardized data platform for AI, the data platform for AI. We've already, in our relatively short inception, have 9 of the Fortune 50 global organizations running huge, extensive AI projects with WEKA underpinning that architecture and allowing the data scientists to get the access to the data that they need in a timely fashion. We've also been recognized by Gartner, which is testimony to the technology. It's testimony to the robustness of that technology and obviously the global reach that we have and supporting those business models. So Gartner has obviously recognized us as a key player within the world of data storage and infrastructure and data management and feeding AI data pipelines. You can see here, so very recently we received some more funding, 70 million, taking us to a total funding of 140 million. That has obviously allowed us to then grow organically across the planet. So we now have opened up offices in Asia Pac. We have Middle East. We've got US as well, so global representation. And what's most interesting here is if you look at the bottom, we are backed by some of the world's leaders, industry leaders in GPUs, which are powering AI, in storage technologies such as NVMe, which is very, very high performance, and in networking. And if you combine those all together, you'll find that WEKA is a data platform, which I'm going to talk about shortly. So just to give you some insight into the vision of our founders, because historically now, I know we've got a mixed audience, and it's difficult in a 10-minute slot to say, right, what is WEKA? And addressing a large audience, some on the IT side, so providing services and infrastructure and providing this accessibility of data, to the other side, which are the data scientists, which we've just heard, who are creating these models and going through everything and then creating business outcomes, to business leaders who are then saying, right, with these outcomes, this is the strategy play that we as an organization need to follow. So we got to bring all of those three together. And just to give you some insight, historically, in the world of data storage and architecture, there was a trade-off between simplicity, there's a trade-off between performance or scale and speed, and then, of course, there's the other one around scale and mobility. In the modern world today, those technologies cannot accommodate. So we are faced with new challenges, which we've heard throughout the presentations yesterday and through the course of today, I'm sure. So these challenges, common to FSI and many other vertical markets, are time, transformation, and resource. So we have seen the emergence of, and we've just heard it in the presentation before, data. How much data can I get? It's growing exponentially with all these new AI, ML workloads. It's growing exponentially with all the new applications that are being created in cloud. Transformation. How many organizations are faced with a cloud-first strategy? Or we need to adopt a new AI model to keep ourselves competitive or go ahead of the competition? How do we transform quick enough in a world that is just changing dramatically? So it's all about agility. Then on the third pillar, we have resource. We've got existing infrastructures. We've got existing people with their own skill sets. How do we fast train and reskill them with the new modern workloads that are required to maintain this competitive edge that we're in? So with that, it's very, very clear that a new approach is needed. And I think it's fundamental. We can see that in any single organization, most in IT today, and from a data storage perspective and infrastructure perspective, you can see that a lot of these organizations are sourcing different ways of trying to do things. They're trying to create new products from legacy-based systems, and it's becoming a challenge for them. And I'm pleased to say that WEKA, we can solve that. So we are the first real, true software-defined data platform that makes it very, very easy for end customers to continue their relationships with their existing infrastructure providers. You have your choice of infrastructure, so there's no more lock-ins. And a lot of vendors, as you know in the past, would provide a product for high performance. Then they give you another product for like scale-up, sharing NAS and network-attached storage. Then there's another product for backup. So you've got all of this complexity. With WEKA, you have your choice of hardware infrastructure. You can have and I'm going to explain how we glue this all together and how we work. You have the capability of choosing your own on-premise cloud infrastructure or run it exclusively in the cloud. Okay, so there's multiple ways of getting together a WEKA solution that will address your AI and machine learning workloads and modern applications. This is just a summary. So we've just seen, again, in the previous presentation, all that data. How do I get data in? How do I process it quick enough? The more data I have, the more models I can run, the more accurate I can get in my predictions, and the better the business outcome. Faster insight into business action, and that's what we can do. And that, if you have to, unfortunately, in the world of where we live, we have to peel that onion back, because at the end of the day, data has to reside somewhere. It's got to reside on a storage device or storage data platform of sorts. Legacy systems cannot feed new GPU-accelerated workloads nearly effectively as what WEKA can do and many others, as what we can do in the industry today. So we have that capability of creating a huge data lake, providing access at the highest levels of performance. To give you an idea, 162 gigabytes per second to a single DGX box, A100. We have customers in finance who are running tier 1 business applications, low latencies, time series database inside of cloud, exclusively, with very, very low latency. We have customers who are looking for how do they get a competitive advantage? So as a snapshot, this is just an introduction to who we are and how we work. You can see an ecosystem, just a subset of the ecosystem above. So I know from the infrastructure side of things, in the audience, you'll be looking at that, well, how do we feed these new applications? Now with WEKA, you do not need to tune. So if you create have a POSIX client, you've got a high-performance compute environment that's traditionally maybe running on some other legacy parallel file system which was written 30, 40 years ago, which hasn't been tuned for the modern applications. You no longer need to go and pause a new application, modern applications coming online. I need to go tune my database. I need to go tune the storage, tune the infrastructure, to then give the application the full benefit that it deserves. With WEKA, it's all auto-tuned. There is no tunables. So we save considerably the amount of management overhead required when new applications come on board. We have the capability, as I mentioned earlier, of driving directly, GPU direct, highest performance. Most AI projects are driven by GPUs now. We've seen that emergence tremendously across the industry. And this industry is untapped with regards to AI. It is still so much more that we can do. And with WEKA, you have the capability of saying, well, I've got some legacy applications that still want to have access to that data. You don't need to copy it. We remove all of the constraints of legacy systems where you have data coming into a certain platform. it's been manipulated slightly, then it's copied off somewhere else, then another application is working on it, then it's copied off somewhere else for backup, then you want to have another copy somewhere else for DR. This whole complexity of data movement is eradicated with WEKA. A single source of data comes into the data platform. You have that multi-protocol access that can be accessed by any file system, can be accessed by any protocol. So if you're working on a high-performance, accelerated GPU workflow around AI, it doesn't matter. If you need to share that data to a legacy application via a different protocol, it doesn't matter. Security, encryption, snapshots, all the enterprise features from a storage perspective that we're used to with a lot of very, very good storage companies are included in the product. So there's nothing extra. And then the last piece I do want to touch on is, which is very important, WEKA in the cloud. So we had a customer, tier 1 bank, who came to us recently and said, we're looking at a little project. We would like to test WEKA exclusively inside the cloud. The cloud of choice at this time was AWS. The reason is we want to run a bespoke application that can generate a process over 200,000 small k, 4K files, 2 4K files of data feeds that we're coming in, but we want to process that amount of data in 1 second. Our engineers looked at that and said, yeah, I think we can do that. We went off, we did some benchmarks, we exceeded that number. Now that's for an application bespoke to their environment for high performance exclusively in cloud. They can take snapshots of that data, they can export that data and put it on premise. And vice versa. You can run the system on prem and you can snapshot into cloud. So you remove all third-party tools around backup and DR, etc. There's a lot of features and functionality that we include. So what we're seeing in today's world is we're accelerating because a lot of organizations with some of their data sets have cloud-first strategy, but it's all sitting on prem. How do I get it into the cloud a lot quicker? WEKA can help with that. We are like a huge big shovel that can move that data seamlessly with the metadata, which is key, into the cloud. You can spin up instances in the cloud, process that data, export the results back onto prem. You can move across different availability zones, etc. So all the enterprise features that you can get on-prem, you can get in the cloud. And my last remark there on that, if you look at the bottom, you see on IO 500, we did a benchmark inside of AWS, and it was the fastest performing file system inside a public cloud. So with these capabilities, not everybody needs performance, but with performance allows you to do so much more. And if we go back to one of my other slides, you can see how we can consolidate legacy systems. And going back to the presentation beforehand, it's all around the data, unstructured data, alternative data that was mentioned. So we have that capability, or customers have the capability of ingesting as much alternative data and any other data that they have internal to their own systems onto a WEKA platform to allow their data scientists to run the modeling and produce the output that the business needs to maintain a competitive edge. So some of the benefits, it is difficult with a very wide audience, so we've got different user groups here. So from a C-level down, most AI projects are driven by C-level down in organizations. Most decisions around cloud adoption are driven by C-level down. So WEKA absolutely helps transform the data center and modernize the data center and accelerate either one of those or both at the same time. GPUs are an expensive resource. Very, very often, and we see this time and time again from our customer base. They go into production, they do a POC or a little pilot of an AI project, an expensive resource in this POC. They then move into production. They then start to scale out the AI project. All of a sudden, there's a bottleneck. And invariably, that bottleneck is data access. It's not the network. It's not the GPUs. They're sitting at 30% idle or utilization. It's the storage that's feeding that. WEKA, we have taken organizations who have had an 80-hour epoch time, end-to-end, reduced that to 4 hours, just by changing the data platform underneath. And that original infrastructure was an all-flash array, high-performing, all the bells and whistles. By giving them all that time back, we've given that organization 75 years worth of innovation in 12 months. So, with that, I think we're back on track. I don't know how much time we've got left. I'd like to thank you for your time and field any questions if there are any.